The Minnesota political assassin has been captured. Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, wow. You want to talk about an absolutely insane weekend? So, as you know, one of the biggest stories in the country we thought was going to be the No Kings protest. No. It turned out to be a coordinated political assassination in the North Star State in Minnesota. And here is now the absolute latest. On Saturday, apparently at about 2 o'clock in the morning, an individual by the name of Vance Luther Bolter targeted the home of a state senator John Hoffman, and his wife Yvette. He dressed up as a police officer, had an SUV that looked like a police car. He broke into the home, fired multiple shots at the Democrat lawmaker and his wife. They are now in very critical condition in the hospital. They've had multiple surgeries. Doctors now are saying this morning they may emerge alive. They believe that they may survive, and if they do, it'll be an absolute miracle because they were shot multiple times. But that wasn't enough for this monster. He then went to the home of the former House Speaker of the Minnesota State Legislature, a state representative, Melissa Hortman, and her husband, Mark. He apparently knocked on the door, wearing a latex mask, wearing a police officer outfit, with a badge, again, with an SUV emergency lights on. It appears that they opened the door for him, thinking there was a legitimate police or security emergency. He then pulled the gun and shot both of them dead. The police by then had heard about the shootings. They rushed onto the scene. As he was walking out of Melissa Hortman's house, a huge firefight erupted. Shots were fired, bullets were flying. Bolter fled inside the house. They were shooting back and forth. Bolter managed to escape through the back, and he escaped on foot. It then turned into a 2-day manhunt, apparently the largest manhunt in the history of Minnesota. Every single law enforcement that was available was used to track him down. They eventually found his vehicle, his car, in rural Minnesota, and late last night, the news broke. In a cornfield, he was arrested. Apparently, there was no incident, there was no shooting, there was no violence. He almost crawled on his belly, begging for mercy, and then the police took him in. He is now in custody. He is being charged with 2 counts of murder, and that's just the beginning. Probably 2 counts of attempted murder, and the feds now say they want to rack up some charges as well. So, what took place, and there's no question about it, was a targeted political killing. This was a political assassination. One state lawmaker is dead. The other state lawmaker, both Democrats, the other state lawmaker is in very critical condition, plus a spouse is dead, and the other spouse also in critical condition. Now, the question is, who is Vance Bolter and why? That's now the question. Who is he and why? Why would he perpetrate this heinous, vile crime? From what we've gathered now over the last 48 hours, and what I want to point to all of you is that a lot of what you're seeing on social media is unverified. A lot of what the media is reporting is unverified. There are a lot of lies, half-truths being pushed out there to sensationalize this, and of course to blame Trump. That's what these sick people in the media do. They don't wait for the facts. They don't wait for the evidence. They look at everything through the lens of politics. Can we wrap this around Donald Trump's neck? Can we wrap it around the neck of Republicans to use it politically? That's all that matters to them. It's not the dead bodies. It's not the people who are still in the hospital fighting for their lives. So here is now the absolute latest that has been 1,000% verified and corroborated. It appears that Vance Bolter is a very troubled, sick individual. He has a wife and he has 5 children. He appeared to have been, for at least a while, a Christian preacher. I swear I'm not making this up. Who went to the Republic of Congo in Africa and spent years in the Republic of Congo in Africa. There are clips of him preaching, yelling, screaming. He loves Jesus. He believes in Jesus. Will you follow me in the love of Jesus? Yeah, I don't think Jesus would have condoned going around on a murderous rampage and assassinating people. But let that go, okay? Let that go. Bolter's wife was pulled over by police 70 miles north of Minneapolis. She was in the northern part of Minnesota. And people don't know whether she was just heading to the northern part of Minnesota or whether she was trying to make a break for the Canadian border. But what was strange is as the police pulled her over, they found $50,000 in cash, a gun, ammunition, and multiple passports. So the question now is, did she know about what Bolter was intending to do before he did it? Or was she some kind of an accomplice after she found out that he did it to try to help him escape? Or, and that hence why she was maybe bolting for the Canadian border? We're going to find that out very soon. But that to me is very odd. It's a very odd part of this. Now, the more you look at this man and this story, the stranger and more bizarre it gets. As I said, he spent years in the Republic of Congo. He then came back, according to his friends, and was going through financial struggles. Their words, not mine. And even though he was having all of these financial struggles, he still managed to have a house. He had multiple vehicles. His wife had multiple vehicles. He seemed to have tons of cash, available cash. They said that was striking. He always had money and lots of money. But he kept complaining he wanted to create a security company. This security company was apparently based in the Congo. It's based in the Congo. He didn't have a client, a single client. He didn't have a single customer. He didn't have a single case. So as his friends put it, it appeared like this security company in the Congo was quote unquote a delusion. He did work as a manager at a convenience store. Now, this is where it also gets very weird. He has a home with his children and his wife about an hour outside of Minneapolis. But he rented a home with multiple roommates, male roommates, who took what he did very hard. Those are the people you see on camera. Especially there's a big chubby guy, I think his name is David Carlson, who keeps constantly he's weeping, he's crying. I can't believe he did this. This is not the Vance that I know. Vance was never an aggressive man. He was a quiet man, never spoke much about politics, yada, yada, yada. So why is he renting a home in which he's going in several times a week, but he's got a home with his wife and his family. Bizarre. Bizarre. Completely bizarre. According to police, he had a list of about 70 politicians and abortion providers that he wanted to shoot up, target, or kill, including Democratic Senators Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, and Tim Tampon Waltz, the governor of Minnesota, among many others. According to his friends, they really didn't know his politics very well. He never spoke politics. They say, though, that he was very anti-abortion. They also claim that he voted for Trump in the last election. And that's pretty much all we know about his politics. He has left behind a manifesto. I don't know why now. They all leave behind manifestos. Have you noticed that? Every time there's a mass shooting, there's a manifesto. The police are holding on to that manifesto, and they haven't released it. My question to you, your reaction, your calls, next. 6:18 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so the alleged political assassin, the suspected assassin, Vance Bolter, has now been arrested. Okay, the man who targeted and killed a Minnesota state lawmaker. In fact, she was the former House Speaker, Melissa Hortman, and her husband are both dead. He also then went to the home and shot up a state senator, John Hoffman. He sits on very powerful committees, along with his wife, Yvette. They are both very badly injured, but it looks like they will survive. Thank the Lord. He has now been arrested in a cornfield in rural Minnesota. Now, on top of everything else, to show you just how bizarre this is, police say that they found in his vehicle stacks and stacks of the No Kings protest flyers. He had flyer upon flyer upon flyer about the No Kings protest. So now, just so that you know, there's a lot of speculation. This part is speculation. There's no question. I mean, the first statement is a truth, but then the motive is speculation. Melissa Hortman and State Senator John Hoffman both crossed the aisle with Republicans and voted against giving illegal immigrants Medicaid and health care. So they were considered by many on the far left to have essentially betrayed them on the issue of providing free health care and welfare to illegal aliens. It was their last vote. It was a controversial vote, but they decided to cross the aisle, join Republicans, and not vote for providing illegal aliens with free Medicaid services. So if that played, now this is speculation, if that played any role in it, we don't know, but that is what some people are speculating. Now, as for himself, this guy Bolter, I've talked about his background quite a bit. Now, I don't know if this is fantasy, if he's just so delusional and so fantastical, or if there's something more shady and nefarious about his background. So he is the head of a security company called the Red Lion Group, which has it's based in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And remember, I mentioned this in my earlier monologue. He apparently had a 3-year stint in the Congo. According to all of his friends, family members, every person said, look, it was very dangerous to be in that country. He tried to help the villagers out. He tried to help them to fish. He tried to help them with food and getting access to clean water. He was a preacher. He tried to spread the gospel to these people in the Congo. Apparently, they all say he was different when he came back, that he appeared depressed, he appeared demoralized. Their words, he appeared, quote-unquote, down, that he had all kinds of financial problems. He did not have a single client or a single contractor or a single customer from his Red Lion group. There was a second security firm that he established. And on that one, he made his wife the president and CEO. And on the website of that group is where he makes these fantastical claims that he did security work, listen to this, in Eastern Europe. That apparently he's some kind of a security expert. And that he did security work in Eastern Europe, in the Middle East, in Gaza, in South Lebanon, in Africa, almost like he's an international James Bond, a security guard for hire, and claiming that he's got top-notch professional skills, and that he's worked in every single corner of the planet. And all of his friends and family say, we don't think he ever had a single contract. He fantasized about being this big security expert. He fantasized about doing security for presidents and prime ministers and African leaders and Middle East sheiks, but we don't think he actually literally ever had a single contract. So again, there's a lot of it appears that there's a lot of delusion tied up to this man, that he kind of lived some kind of a fantasy life in his mind. Now, furthermore, he did work for a while with African United. Now, this is very important. When he was back in Minnesota, he was working with African United, which is an NGO, a non-governmental organization, in order to relocate and resettle African migrants across Minneapolis, across St. Paul, and across Minnesota in general. However, when reporters reached out to African United, they said, well, he may put that up on his website, and he may say he helped, but what they're claiming is they never paid him a single dollar. That they never had a contract with Bolter, that they never did any official business or transaction with Bolter, and that he never got, like I said, a red cent. Because when people saw African United, NGO, relocating African migrants, on social media, everybody pounced saying, oh, USAID. He was taking USAID money. And if you're taking USAID money, there could be connections to the CIA. Now, look, I don't know. I'm trapped by what I can tell you from the media reports. But multiple media reports, including people at African United, say he can say whatever he wants to say on a website. I'm telling you, we never sent a check. We never paid this guy ever. We never had a single contract. So what you have here is clearly a deranged man who came back from Africa. Something happened to him in Africa because he was a different man, who had a shadow life, who was living with grown men and seeing them several times a week in a house in Minneapolis with a family an hour away in their home, who financially was struggling, yet managed to have multiple vehicles and multiple properties. Something doesn't add up. Really, something doesn't add up. Who then targeted state lawmakers, and especially those that were staunchly pro-abortion and wanted to shoot up abortion providers. My question to you, what do you think happened? Why did he do it? 6:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, political assassinations that have now shaken the country to its very foundations. So they have finally captured and arrested the Minnesota assassin. Vance Luther Bolter is his name. He's 57 years old. And let me just ask all of you, when you hear about this story, Is Democratic rhetoric to blame for what took place in Minnesota over the weekend? The constant calls for violence, the support of rioting, looting, burning, constantly referring to Trump and Republicans as Nazis, fascists. You have the no protests movement over the weekend, where in North Carolina, for example, one state rep spoke with the severed head of Donald Trump, a fake severed head of Trump, and the crowd cheering wildly. The talks of a dictatorship coming, that Trump is a king and a monarch. This extremist, incendiary rhetoric, as this now fundamentally caused so much tension and hatred to break out, that this is now the inevitable result. That you are going to create political violence, and you're going to create now a climate where political assassinations begin to surge. And let me add this extra log on the fire. Why do you think he did it? What do you think his motives were? And are you as shocked and outraged as I am? 617-266-6868. Now, and it's a very strange, incredibly bizarre story. I think because he's a very strange and very bizarre man. But let me add one final angle to this to show you how insane this whole thing is. The media is and the Democrats, they're desperately trying to paint him as this MAGA Republican. And they're basing this off of his friend, the one that he was living with, or one of the friends that he was living with part-time at this house in Minneapolis, saying that in the last election he voted for Trump, and that apparently he's very anti-abortion. But there is a Tim Waltz angle to all of this. Bolter was appointed by Tim Waltz to be on this workforce development board in Minnesota. So, in fact, technically, he was a Waltz aide. Now, he wasn't a major aide. I'm not saying he was his chief of staff or deputy chief of staff. There, 100 boards in Minnesota? But the fact of the matter is, Waltz is an incredibly partisan Democrat. That's no secret. And so why would he appoint, allegedly, a pro-life, pro-Trump, MAGA Republican to sit on this board, on this commission? By the way, one of the people that was shot, State Senator John Hoffman, was also sitting on the board. And that is probably how they knew each other. So these boards are highly political. They're appointed by hacks are appointed to these boards. So, and not only was he appointed by Waltz, this was his second time on the board. He had previously been appointed to this board, this Workforce Development Commission in Minnesota, by the prior governor, Mark Dayton, who also was a Democrat. So, two Democratic governors, both of them appointed him to this board or this commission. And why? Why, if he's this staunch Trump Republican in blue Minnesota, where the Democrats hate Trump's guts, why would they put him on the board? None of it makes sense. None of this makes sense. And to me, the only thing that does make sense, and I'm just speaking from the heart now, is I've been warning about political violence now for how long? And I said it's no longer going to just be riots on the streets. It's no longer just going to be burning and looting and attacking police. I said, watch. You're going to start to see political officials and political leaders getting killed. Because it is impossible in this country with the left, I'm calling them out, with Democrats to have a civil, reasonable, rational conversation. If every argument goes to Hitler, if every argument goes to racism, if every argument goes to dictatorship, fascism, here, already now, here, no evidence. No evidence. We don't know what his views on race are. Right away, all over social media, all these Democrats, Christian white nationalism, that's what drove this, white supremacy. Well, the people he shot were white. Stupid. Melissa Hortman was white. John Hoffman, the state senator, white. His wife was white. Hortman's husband, Mark, was white. Hell, whiter than I am. But it doesn't matter. All they do is just pour gasoline on the fire. The more incendiary, the more hysterical. And by the way, they had a huge No Kings protest in Minneapolis, even though police urged them not to hold a rally, saying then at the time the killer was on the loose. And they're like, out of an abundance of caution, please don't show up. Well, no, they show up. Of course, they live for this moment. And there's Keith Ellison, that Jew hater, that anti-white racist. Okay, he's auditioning to be the next Louis Farrakhan. It's pretty obvious. And there he is, blaming Trump, blaming Republicans. This is going to happen to all of us. They're going to shoot us in our homes. You have ratcheted up the political hatred and the political tension and in a sense, the political terror to such a high level. People are snapping. People are snapping. And I'm telling you, it's going to get worse. This is not going to get any better. It's going to get worse. And I'll tell you who I blame. One of the key people I blame is that SOB, that Minnesota governor. And I'm going to get to him a little bit later. You want to talk about undeniable proof that he's a Chinese agent and a traitor. You cannot believe what he recently said about the Iran-Israel war and the role that China must play. The role that China must play. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It comes out of this man's mouth. So how much time left, Mike? All right, Mike. You know what? We'll play it on the other side. So I want to play you a cut on the other side. And then you tell me if Tim Waltz is not partially responsible, not just for what happened in Minnesota, but for all of the violence, all of the hatred, all of the rioting, all of the burning, all of the looting, all of the insane protesting that has erupted across the country in the last week. I've got that. I want to take all of your calls. 617-266-6868. Don't touch that dial. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want you to listen now. This is Tampon Tim, Governor Tim Waltz. We're talking about the violence, the assassinations, the killing of a state lawmaker and her husband, and the serious injuries, the wounding of another state senator and his wife, Yvette. Listen to him saying, it's time for us to find common ground. It's time for us to shake hands. It's time for us, damn it, to be civilized to one another. Roll cut 43, Mike.
A moment in this country where we watch violence erupt. This cannot be the norm. It cannot be the way that we deal with our political differences. Now's the time for us to recommit to the core values of this country. And each and every one of us can do it. Talk to a neighbor rather than arguing. Debate an issue. Shake hands. Find common ground.
Yeah, right. This is from the same guy, because now he's reaping the whirlwind. Okay? Now it's all coming, as Jeremiah Wright would say, the chickens have come home to roost. This was him just a week ago. Just a week ago. This was in South Carolina. This was him in South Carolina. Roll cut 43A, Mike.
I called Donald Trump a wannabe dictator. It's because he is. It's because he is. Oh. The governor's being mean, and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce. Because we have to ferociously push back on this. And again, I'll speak to my teacher colleagues in here. The thing that bothers a teacher more than anything is to watch a bully, to watch this bully, and to stop it. And when it's a child, you talk to them, and you tell them why bullying's wrong. But when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the out of him back. You push back. You make sure they know it's not there. Because at heart, this is a weak, cruel man that takes it out and punches down on people.
There you go. That's finding common ground, huh? We got to talk to each other. We got to shake hands. We got to see points of view that we agree on. Right. Okay. Let me give you one more. Here's Tampon Tim, University of Minnesota Law School, graduation. This is how he refers to ICE. Roll cut 43B, Mike.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared. To be clear, there's no way for us to know whether they were actually criminals or not, because they refused to give them a trial. We're supposed to just take their word for it. And when duly elected members of Congress tried to exercise their constitutional right of oversight at an ICE facility, they get shoved around and threatened with arrest. And when courts told them repeatedly to knock it off, they brazenly defy them.
There you go. There you go. So ICE is going around wearing masks, just grabbing civilians off the streets, throwing them in vans, then deporting them to these torture prisons in El Salvador. Okay, all of it. Horse crap. Unadulterated, pure horse crap. Okay? So I think he's talking about Kilmar Abrego Garcia in this. I think. Well, he's back. He's back, and he's facing 100 years jail time for human trafficking. So your Maryland man is back. There's your torture prison for you. But this is what I mean. When you have Democratic leaders, look, this guy's a governor, man. People in Minnesota actually believe what he says. When he says that the president is unleashing paramilitary groups across the country who are just willy-nilly, fascist style, grabbing innocent people off the streets, whether they're citizens or not citizens, it doesn't matter, and then throwing them in vans, and then putting them on a plane and sending them to get tortured, these idiots believe it. I.e., that's why you had the No Kings protest. What are they protesting? A king, a monarch, a dictator. They literally believe this garbage. Now, after it leads to, 2 dead, 2 in the hospital, one state lawmaker dead, the other state senator clinging to his life, all of a sudden, we gotta shake hands. We gotta be more reasonable, more civilized, more rational. We gotta come together. You phony, you fraud, you. And just for the record, you can try to pin this on Republicans till the cows come home. You appointed him to your board. He's your political aide. There's no getting around that, Tampon Tim. Now, you vetted him. You chose him. You appointed him. Just like the other guy. You remember he had another political appointee who was caught going around literally keying Teslas? So that's how Tampon Tim rolls. So, my friends, I'm sorry. We're not going to know, I believe, ever what really motivated this man. Because you're already seeing so many lies being spewed about this murderer, this thug, Bolter. But I can tell you this, okay? I can just tell you this. If we don't ratchet down the hatred coming from the Democratic Party and the lunatics on the left, you're going to see more bloodshed, more political assassinations, more death. Am I wrong? 617-266-6868. Derek in South Boston. You're going to kick us off, Derek, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. All right. I watched Tim Waltz press conference last night about 11:45. And it's funny how he and Amy Klobuchar, they made the comments and about the shooting, and Amy Klobuchar decided she's going to put, I understand she may know these people who served in the, in the state capitol and everything, but she made it sound like they were just, they were so above the fray as far as the political back and forth. And then, she underneath her breath want to direct this toward Trump. And then watching Walt's press conference last night, he's sitting there talking about, well, we got to find a way to the common ground and let's get rid of the discord and everything else, because mean tweets and all this don't solve problems. And I'm sitting there looking at him and I'm saying, the guy come from your administration. What are you talking about? And I'm just saying, you won't have a real man would sit there and say, well, I hired the guy and I didn't see this coming, blah, blah, blah. But he's such a coward, just the way he is. And I tell everybody, you ought to be thanking God that this guy isn't the vice president of the United States, because we were just that close of having him in D.C. And when you watch Minnesota is just the Oregon of the Midwest. You got all these people who come in, and you got all these foreigners, Somalians, and everybody else. And Minnesota is used to be a beautiful state. Used to be, St. Paul, Minneapolis used to be a beautiful city. Now it's trash. I mean, I've been through there before. Looked nice. I went there again. It's horrible. And I'm just saying, Minnesota is so rock gut. It's just like Seattle, Washington, or Portland, Oregon. It's gone down the drain, and it's all because of these left-wing nuts. And like you said, it's going to get worse. It's only because the Democrats went so far to the left that they can't even pull it back to the middle. And now you got all these extremists who just, they don't want to, common ground. They don't want to meet people in the middle. They want what they want, and they're going to take you out if you don't do it their way.
You nailed it. Oh, Derek, look, you absolutely nailed it. And, Waltz is a coward. He's a coward. And this is the result of his rhetoric. And not just him, others like him in the Democratic Party. So you keep pouring gasoline on the fire. You keep pouring gasoline on the fire. You keep hiring some of the most unhinged, deranged people, and that's what he does. And instead of saying, how did we miss the background checks? How did we not vet this guy? How did we kept him on this board? We hired him. He was one of my aides. No. Now it's like, let's all sing Kumbaya. To me, it's just unbelievable what a fraud this man is. And look, there's no getting around it, okay? There's absolutely just no getting around it. When you keep calling the President of the United States Adolf Hitler, and you keep saying that he's a fascist dictator who's destroying our democracy, and that's what they keep repeating over and over again, and that he's sending people in unmarked vans, paramilitaries, to scoop innocent people off the streets, which is a complete lie, and then sending them off to dungeons around the world to be tortured, it's inevitable. You're going to have massive violence. That's why, I don't know if people saw the No Kings protest. I know generally most of them were peaceful. Okay. Not everything was bad everywhere. They did block traffic, which to me is a crime, but let that go. But I don't know if you saw what the hell they did in Los Angeles. Los Angeles has surrendered. I mean, there were tens and tens and tens of thousands who literally took over all of downtown LA. And it was a sea of Mexican flags, Guatemalan flags, Palestinian flags. There was smoke everywhere. I mean, they torched cars. They assaulted and beat police officers. They attacked police officers. And essentially, the cops stood down. Karen Bass, she's a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. She visited Fidel Castro repeatedly. So she's a revolutionary Marxist. It's not an exaggeration. That's who she is. And she's saying she sides with people power and the rioters. And notice, it's a pattern with Democrats. It happens again and again. Whenever they lose an election, they riot, they protest, they burn, they loot businesses, they destroy cities. That's what they do. Whether it's Black Lives Matter, whether it's the Women's March, remember under Trump? Day one, the day he was inaugurated, his first term. He just literally was inaugurated. And remember Madonna gave that famous speech, I dream of blowing up the White House. They occupied downtown Washington. They looted businesses. They torched cars. It's what they do. And they started a riot right there in downtown Washington. That was the first day of Trump's presidency. You know, with the pea hats. They're all wearing the so-called pea hats, the pink pea hats. So that's what Democrats do. They throw a temper tantrum and they resort to street violence over and over again. And, you know, all these idiots now are like, you MAGA bastards, you MAGA bastards, you have blood on your hands. I'm like, you are so stupid, it's not even funny. 36 innocent civilians slaughtered by Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Just in the so-called Summer of Love alone, the George Floyd riots. What about the Bernie supporter who shot up that congressional baseball field and almost killed Steve Scalise? What about him? What about him? You guys forgot about that already? Huh? You forgot about that? I could go on and on about left-wing Democrat violence in this country. You keep falsely calling someone Hitler and the end of freedom and the end of democracy. And I'm telling you, this is the inevitable end result. And I blame the media, I blame the Democrats, and I blame the establishment Republicans. Because they should be calling this out. Saying stop with the lies, the propaganda, the panic porn, the fear-mongering, the hysteria. Stop it. You're going to get people killed. It's the equivalent of yelling fire in a crowded theater. And they're doing it again and again and again. Well, now you got it. You happy now? You happy? So 2 innocent people are dead? 2 others are fighting for their lives? 617-266-6868 is the number. Regina in Indiana. Thanks for holding, Regina, and welcome.
Hi, I just wanted to mention that I believe that congresswoman who was murdered was taken out because just a few days before she had voted with the Republicans to discontinue health care for the illegal aliens, and they couldn't have her getting off the plantation.
Yeah, Regina, she's not a congresswoman. She's a state representative. But I get your point. No, that's fine. It's just a little technical thing. But no, Regina, look, that's the scuttlebutt in Minnesota. Exactly what you're saying. That a lot of leftists were really angry that she crossed the aisle. She joined Republicans and voted against free Medicaid health care for illegal aliens. And they consider that treason. And she was now public enemy number one. So, look, what I find strange about the whole thing, Regina, is how did he get into the first house? State Senator John Hoffman. He gets into that house. Yeah, I know. He's dressed as a police officer. He then shoots them up. Then he heads off to Melissa Hortman's house, the state rep that you're talking about. But the police are on their way. So what, did they find the list? Was Hoffman number one? Hortman number two? Anyway, they're on their way. Yeah. So anyway, but they show up there. He gets out after he shoots him dead in their home. And then there's a firefight that emerges, a gunfight. And then he ends up escaping. I don't know, just how easily he was able to get into these people's homes. And this so-called manifesto, again, they're not releasing the manifesto. Well, why not release the manifesto? What are you hiding? You have him in custody. You arrested him. So there's just something here that doesn't smell right. And then the cops, when they arrested his wife, now this is 70 miles north of Minneapolis, to meet with the passports and with a ton of cash, with a gun and ammunition. They've got four daughters: Faith, Hope, Charity, and I think it's Chastity. But anyway, basically he's a biblical guy. So he's a preacher. So he gave his daughters those kinds of names. But the police describe it as she was there with her relatives in the car. The car was packed with her and relatives. Would you describe your children as quote-unquote relatives? To me, you would say children. So if it wasn't her kids, who the hell was she in the car with? And why was she making a break for the border? So none of this makes sense. It's bizarre. The whole thing is absolutely bizarre. Regina, final word to you.
It was all a setup to make it look like it was a Trump supporter. They have no proof for it. Just the words that other people have said. Like they cleared the Facebook post off of one guy, so there wouldn't be any way to trace any of his thoughts and things like that. It's a shame that our government is so corrupt, and you can't trust like the CIA. Hopefully the FBI is getting straightened around, but look how much they're letting go, with the FBI and also the Department of Justice. So much more things they should be going after that happened in the previous administration and under Obama. So I don't know. It's so frustrating, but we just keep our faith and trust in God and know that in the end, God's going to take care of it all and everything will be rebuilt in God's own time.
Well, the truth will come out. You're right. The truth will eventually come out. And look, Regina, this is the thing that to me is the last piece of the puzzle that I want answered. So now the media and the Dems are trying to portray him as this rabid MAGA Republican. But all of his friends, all of them, and his roommates, those male roommates, that's bizarre. Why was he going to Minneapolis, sleeping there 2-3 nights a week, and leaving his wife and children alone at their home an hour away? Like, the whole thing is bizarre. But they all said he never talked politics. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. They go, I'm telling you, he's not a political guy. I can play you the cuts, one after another. That's why they're like, we're just shocked. They go, he was against abortion. They go, yes. On that issue, he was strident. That's what they all say. But they go, politics? I mean, outside of abortion. Hardly ever said a word. Now, they say when we pressed them, he goes, yeah, I voted for Trump. But this idea that he had a Trump flag, he had Trump stickers, he was a big Trump guy, that's a lie. That's a complete lie. That's coming from his own friends, his roommates. So, again, and no one's mentioning the fact he was appointed by Tim Waltz. He was an aide of Tim Tampon Waltz. More next. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, the key to his success, in terms of breaking in and shooting people, was because Vance Bolter was dressed as a police officer. He impersonated a police officer. He wore a badge. He apparently even had a taser on him to make it look like he was, with the belt and everything. He had a SUV-style security vehicle with the emergency lights on. He had a mask. So he convinced both State Senator Hoffman and State Representative Melissa Hortman that he was a legitimate police officer and there was a security issue. And that's how he's able to break into both homes. I want you to listen now to the Minnesota Public Security Commissioner in response to when he's giving out this information. How dare he abuse the trust that people have in law enforcement, in men and women in law enforcement uniform, to commit these heinous, monstrous murders. Roll cut 44, Mike.
Bolter exploited the trust our uniforms are meant to represent. That betrayal is deeply disturbing to those of us who wear the badge with honor and responsibility.
I agree with him. I mean, just in one of the homes, and I don't want to linger on this, but there was a beautiful dog, a terrier, one of these beautiful rescue dogs, and apparently he shot that dog dead. Without even blinking, just boom, shot it dead. I mean, this guy's a monster. He's a monster. Okay, he's a cold SOB, man. Let me tell you, you're sick. You're really sick. No regard for human life. No regard for anything. Now, I just want to emphasize 2 points. Only because the media is running with information that they have not corroborated, that has not been verified. Some of it is blatantly untrue, to try to smear Trump as somehow being responsible. By the way, I have idiots who are emailing me, these crazy moonbats, I swear to you, saying, I'm to blame. Me. I have blood on my hands. You. You're to blame for what happened in Minnesota. You're crazy. That's what you are. You're crazy, okay? So, both of them, State Senator John Hoffman and Melissa Hortman, and the reason why it's very important with Hortman, she was the former House Speaker of Minnesota. So she was a very senior, very influential, very prominent state Democrat. Both of them crossed the aisle and voted with Republicans to cut free health care, i.e. Medicaid, to illegal aliens, which many on the hard radical left in Minnesota said was an absolute betrayal that they would never forgive them for. So there was a lot of hatred and a lot of fire and fury and a lot of anger and disgust and recrimination being directed at the two of them, saying, how dare you do this to illegals? Furthermore, again, this is being downplayed by much of the media. Bolter's vehicle had hundreds of flyers for the No Kings protest over the weekend. So and remember, he was an aide of Tim Waltz. He was appointed once by the previous Democrat governor, Mark Dayton, again by Waltz, appointed to the workforce, Minnesota Workforce Development Commission. So he sat on the member of a council and a commission, which is, you only put hacks on these commissions. These are vetted, they're checked. These are you put political partisans there. So if he was this big MAGA Trump supporter, well, why did Waltz appoint him? Why did Waltz put him on the board? In fact, the statement that he released after he appointed Bolter to this workforce commission was, quote, he's a man of immense integrity, honor, and character. Literally, that's what he said. And that's why we're putting him on the board. Now, he did work again to try to relocate and settle African migrants from the Congo through Africa United, which is an NGO that is in many states, and they do get a lot of USAID money. Now, if that's the case, that may explain Bolter's cash, because he had a lot of cash. Because what all of his workers were saying, or whatever, his friends, not workers, all of his roommates, buddies, friends were saying is his security company wasn't getting off the ground. He was financially frustrated. Nothing seemed to be working in terms from a professional point of view. He had to take a job as a manager at a convenience store, which he thought was beneath him. But he's got all this cash. And he's got multiple cars. And he's got multiple properties. So where did he get the cash? Well, people are saying it's got to be USAID from his work with Africa United, relocating these African migrants. They're claiming that he never got a single contract. Now, we have to find out. That's where I think the Doge boys need to get in there and track the money. Follow the money. Because, again, something doesn't smell right. But the fact of the matter is, whatever it leads to, the fact of the matter is, this was Tim Waltz's aide. And another aide, among other aides, who have been caught committing horrible, horrible crimes and acts of terrorism. So my question to you, do Democrats bear responsibility for what happened in Minnesota? And is their ideology of violence and hatred, is it now literally putting people's lives at risk? Your calls, your reaction, next. Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me throw this super mini log on the fire before I get right back to the phone lines. 617-266-6868. On his resume, and you could see it on Bolter's website, okay? The suspected, he's now been arrested, the suspected shooter, the assassin. He keeps going on about his extensive experience in the Middle East. Now, he may be blowing smoke. This could just be, a lie to puff himself up. He was in Eastern Europe. He was in Africa. He was in Gaza. He's in southern Lebanon. He was across the Middle East. So this just may be a way for him to puff himself up to get his security company off the ground. Okay, so I'm not saying believe him. But part of me, I'm looking at this and I'm just, thinking like an investigator. Could he be tied? Could this be an act of terrorism? With ties to the Middle East? I'm not saying it is. Far from it. But I'm just saying, with the war going on between Israel and Iran, with the Muslim Brotherhood now actively working in the United States, and now it's been confirmed many of them joined the No Kings protests over the weekend, waving the Palestinian flag, calling for death to Donald Trump. Many of these protests were literally calling for the assassination of Trump. And the Muslim Brotherhood was playing a key role in this. And by the way, the left conveniently forgets it was an anti-Trumper, a leftist, who came a millimeter from blowing Trump's brains out, shot him in the ear. So, suddenly, MAGA's violent. All MAGA does is want violence. Yeah, you almost killed a former president and the leading presidential candidate. So if I were you, I would get off my high horse, okay? But what, 2 assassination attempts is not enough for you? And so, for example, in North Carolina, a state rep literally held the head of a fake severed Trump head. In another one in Virginia, they were chanting and calling for Trump's assassination and murder. In L.A., elements of the Muslim Brotherhood were waving Palestinian flags, literally chanting death to Trump, death to America, assassinate him, kill him. So this is what you see happening all around the country. You can't rule anything out now at this point. Now, again, it could all be lies. It could all be smoke. It could all be a way of trying to puff himself up. But to me, it's got to be a possibility. Was there any foreign connection to what Vance Bolter did? That, I think, is something the police and the feds need to investigate. Agree, disagree? 617-266-6868. Mark in Medford. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you on this Monday?
I'm good. How are you, Mark?
I'm good, Jeff. So first off, I want to start by saying, if anybody out there doesn't know what talking out of both sides of your mouth is, then you should play that Tim Waltz montage again, because he's the perfect freaking example of it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I don't know why this guy did this, and I feel sorry for everybody involved that died, that's critically injured and whatnot. But have you noticed, Jeff? You brought up Trump's assassination attempts. Have you noticed that not one conservative Republican or anybody in a right frame of mind, okay, has said, I wish they all died. I wish the shooter was a better shot. Can't say so much about that on the other side now, can we?
Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And it wasn't just Trump. You're right. Look at Luigi Mangione.
Mm-hmm.
Look how the left has glorified Mangione. He's a hero. He's a hero for having killed that healthcare CEO. Nobody on the right, nobody is saying, wow, look at Vance Bolter. Yeah, he's a hero. He shot him dead. Or I wish he killed the other two. Son of a gun. Should have been a better shot. That's what they said about Trump. That's what they said about Mangione. Notice on the right, we condemn it unconditionally. Unconditionally. No excuses. And I've got to ask you, Mark, what do you think was the motive for this monster? What do you think was the ultimate reason why he did what he did?
Jeff, I've been saying this for a while now with all these protests and all these whack jobs out there. And you know what? I'm not blaming one side. I blame both sides. Eventually, someone is going to snap and say, enough is enough. I can't deal with this bullcrap anymore. And here's a little food for thought, Jeff. If you people think that Donald Trump thinks he's a king, I got news for you. A king won't let you have a no kings protest, you friggin' morons.
Mark, drop the mic, baby, because you're completely right. No king, no monarch, no dictator, no strongman would allow you to have millions of people marching in 2,000 cities across the country calling for him to be overthrown. That's not what dictators and monarchs do. But you can't. And by the way, when you look at the crowd, most of the people L.A. was the exception. Okay, there was a lot of young men there. And you can see they're from everywhere. But here in Massachusetts, as an example, but it doesn't matter, many other places, they were overwhelmingly white, obviously very liberal, and either middle-aged or senior citizens. So it's really old white liberals who read the New York Times or the Boston Globe, or the few left that still watch This is CNN, or ABC News, or CBS News, or whatever, listen to NPR. That was the NPR crowd, for the most part, that was out there last night. Over the weekend. Those were the shock troops of the No Kings protest. And honestly, that's why it was such a dud. It's just, young people, nah. Latinos, nah. Blacks, nah. Because in the end, everybody can see the last thing Trump is a dictator. He won the election. He campaigned on deporting illegal aliens. ICE is part of the deportation effort. Hello? What's the problem? 617-266-6868. Alex in the Freedom State, Florida. Thanks for holding, Alex, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, Alex.
Recently, I've been thinking that we don't really know the truth. None of us know the truth. Until the Epstein files are released, we don't know what people really think. I think there's a whole bunch of blackmail going on. And unfortunately, I think probably Trump and Pam Bondi and Robert Kennedy Jr. and Elon Musk are part of those files. I mean, I hate to say that.
Alex, I'm up against a hard break. Can you just hang on? I want to come back to Alex, take more of your calls, and let me ask all of you, what is your reaction to the assassinations in Minnesota? Your calls next. 750 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, before we go right back to Alex in Florida, and by the way, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868. There is a story. It's a very disturbing story. It's a local story, but it's gone, like everything else in Massachusetts, it's gone national. There is a grocery store in Brookline, which, by the way, is heavily Jewish. Okay, it's a heavily Jewish area, very nice area, prosperous, clean, very safe. Well, over the weekend, they had a nasty anti-Semitic incident. During these No Kings protests, someone threw a brick and smashed the window, right through the window, of this Jewish grocery store. And it said Free Palestine on the brick. Now, this grocery store has been around for 60 years. And Sandy knows it very well. Many people in that whole community know it very well. It's a staple of the community. And to show you what kind of people run it, they're good, decent, salt-of-the-earth people. By the way, they have excellent meats. Excellent meats, fruits, vegetables. But their meats, everybody says top quality. When they haven't sold, say, sandwiches or delis or whatever, foods that are, prepared for that day, they will go to the local senior citizen home or the local VA home and give away free food. Free food, delicious, healthy, nutritious, free food to veterans and senior citizens. That's the kind of people they are that run that place. And they get a brick through the window, basically saying no Jews allowed. That's what they mean when they say free Palestine, i.e., all the Jews out of Israel, and basically all the Jews out. That's what that really means. Now, the reason why I'm asking is this is just one small example of the kind of political viciousness, political hatred, political violence that is now daily from the left in this country. And it culminated with the no protests movement, the no kings, no crowns protest movement over the weekend. And so my question to you, it is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. Have you experienced or have you seen or heard about violence in your neighborhood? Have you seen, witnessed, experienced, or heard about violence in your neighborhood? A, yes. B, no. I'm a yes. There's no question. I've experienced personally violence. I've seen violence. I've heard about violence, even in my neck of the woods. Even in my neck of the woods. So if it's happening in my area, I'm telling you it's probably happening in cities and towns all across Massachusetts, New England, and the entire country. But that's me. I want to hear from you. A, yes. B, no. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. You can also vote via X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in national ER. Let's go right back to Alex in Florida. Alex, you're saying you're very disappointed in Pam Bondi, to a lesser extent in Trump and in others. They have not released the Epstein files, and you believe that's the reason why so many politicians are being blackmailed. And you say you fear because they're probably, along with Elon Musk and others, that they're probably in those files. Please pick up where you left off.
On the Diddy case, you know that Prince released a statement that he recorded 2 weeks before he passed, where he said basically the Diddy parties are gotcha parties. You go there, there's cameras everywhere. They want you on video so they can blackmail you. And he basically denounced those parties, which is obvious that he should have. We do not know the truth. We do not know the ulterior motive of any of our politicians. There's a reason why you said, Jeff, that if you were concerned if those files were released that it would collapse our government because there's so much involvement by our politicians. Maybe our government needs to be collapsed. Maybe that's the only way it's going to fix itself.
Alex, slightly off topic from what we're talking about, but look, there's a running debate now among many conservatives. Do we not release the files because it is going to do so much damage to our country's political leadership, to some members on the Supreme Court, to our entire media, to Hollywood celebrities, that in other words, it would bring the country and the government down? And are we willing to risk the consequences of that? And many conservatives now are coming to the conclusion, no. I'm a yes. Frankly, let the chips fall where they may. And again, I'm going to say this line from Wall Street. I've used it before. I love it. It's one of the best movie lines I ever heard. You want to know how I lead my life? I'm not being sanctimonious. I'm just telling you the truth. Okay? This is how I lead my life. I don't go to bed with no whore. I don't wake up with no whore. It's like the Boston Herald and the Republican establishment and the Democrats into an absolute frenzy. They went freaking berserk. Berserk. They were calling for my scalp when I said that, over a year ago. So, and I'll say it again. I don't go to bed with no whore, and I don't wake up with no whore. I'm not saying I'm perfect. Far from it. In fact, I got to go to confession again. Okay? I didn't take communion yesterday because I got to go to confession. So, the last thing Jeff Kuhner is I'm not sanctimonious. I'm not self-righteous. I'm a sinner like everybody else. But I'm telling you, you can say whatever you want about me. I'm not a whore. I'm not. I wasn't raised to be a whore. I'm not a whore. I couldn't live with myself if I was a whore. So, my principles are not for sale. I don't sell myself to the highest bidder. I don't. And I think that's the problem with this country. And what I can't wrap my mind around, because I don't have that inclination, I never have. It's so abhorrent to me. This obsession with diddling kids, this obsession with pedophilia, this obsession with sleeping with underage girls and underage boys, and the names now on the Epstein list, the rumors that are flying, and pictures are coming out now of certain rock stars, very, massive, huge rock stars. And I'm thinking, of all the women you can sleep with, and the groupies, and they're throwing themselves at you, you got to go for a 14-year-old girl? Like, you sick, disgusting pervert? Like, this is what I mean. And how many pedophiles are in our government? It's Sodom and Gomorrah. So, no, release it all. I don't care who's implicated. I don't care who it brings down. I don't care. It's time for a purge. I don't want to live in a country like this. I don't want to live in a society like this. And again, I'm not trying to be on my high horse. I cannot think of a more vile crime than to molest, rape, sexually exploit a child or underage, girls or boys. I really can't. I guess outside of murder. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you live with yourself, but apparently a lot of them have. Well, I want to know who they are because they're being blackmailed. And that explains to me many, many, many of the decisions that our leaders have now taken for a very long time. So I want to know. And I think we have a right to know. And until those files are released, I'm sorry. Pam Bondi I know, I get upset. People get upset every time I say this. Pam Bondi is a failure. Dan Bongino is a failure. And Kash Patel is a failure. And they're already setting us up that they're not going to release the Epstein files. Kash Patel now gave a recent interview saying there's no there. So it's not just that there's no there regarding the assassination of Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now there's no there apparently in the Epstein files. Now listen, don't play me for a fool. Okay, don't play me for a fool. I know a cover-up when I see a cover-up. So I think it's obvious that either they've been intimidated, they have been persuaded, they've been bought off, or the FBI and the deep state successfully managed to destroy much of the Epstein files, and these three are too afraid to confront the deep state because they don't want to sleep with the fishes, as the Godfather in the famous line in the Godfather movie. But whatever's going on, I'm increasingly convinced either we're not going to get the Epstein files, or if we do, we're going to get a highly redacted, highly edited, very compromised release, where much of the documents have already been shredded or destroyed. So, and with it, the hopes of many people that these deep state criminals would be arrested, indicted, and go to prison. So, and let's bring it back to Minnesota. I want to know what motivated this guy to go in there and shoot up 2 homes and put one state lawmaker in the grave and another one in the hospital, and Melissa Hortman's husband dead, and State Senator John Hoffman's wife, Yvette, in the hospital. I want to know what his motives and motivations were. I think we have a right to know. And again, there's a manifesto, and they refuse to release the manifesto. And the other thing I can't stand, Alex, is everything in this country now is done by leak. It's all these leaks. So they claim there's a list. They don't release the list. Why don't they release the list? But anyway, they don't want to release the list. But then you have these apparently law enforcement sources who tell reporters, but I've seen the list. And they go, I'll tell you who's on the list. So they claim that Ilhan Omar is on the list, that he wanted to kill some people, did something. That's what they're claiming. That he wanted to kill this guy Bolter, Vance Bolter, that he wanted to kill Tim Waltz, the governor, the lieutenant governor, Penny Flanagan, that he wanted to kill Amy Klobuchar, the senior senator, Tina Smith, the junior senator, that apparently he had a list of 70 people, including, these were all apparently pro-abortion Democrats, including abortion clinics and abortion providers. Now, that's what they're claiming through the media. Well, why am I always hearing stuff third hand? Why am I always hearing stuff through the grapevine? Hearsay, double hearsay. Why can't you just release the list? Why can't you release the manifesto? So the problem now is, I go back to a call from Regina in Indiana. I don't trust them anymore. I have a hard time trusting authority, which used to be the exact opposite. I was raised to believe and trust in authority. But you keep lying to us, or you keep spinning us, or you keep giving us misinformation. Well, I'm not going to believe you. And that's where we are now. Look, I can read the temperature of the audience. You may disagree with me. But from going through the texts, the emails, the messages on Messenger, and so far the calls, I think many people in the audience don't know what to make of it. Because they don't know what's true, what's not true. They're like, well, who knows? Who knows what's really going on? Tell me, am I wrong? 617, and thank you for that call, Alex. 617-266-6868 is the number. Bob in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
You know, a little while ago, you called Walsh a man. Well, the only time he had a chance to man up was when his outfit was going overseas and he retired. So I don't consider him a man at all. He also caved into this nonsense that Kamala Harris was a potential presidential candidate, and you know that's not true, and I don't really think that he believes that. It's all a big act. Now, the other day, he was on I don't know what you want to call it, Center for American Progress interview in Washington. Is that something we're paying for? The Center for American Progress, and all he talked about was how great China was.
Do me a favor, Bob. Hold your fire. Keep your powder dry, because you set it up beautifully for me. This is Tampon Tim Waltz, exactly as Bob said. He's speaking at an event. It's the Center for American Progress. Now, he's now claiming that in the war between Israel and Iran, that we, the United States, do not have the moral authority to negotiate a peace agreement or a peace deal. But do you know, according to Tampon Tim, which country does have the moral authority? Listen to this. It's unbelievable. Roll cut 11, Mike.
Now, who is the voice in the world that can negotiate some type of agreement in this? Who holds the moral authority? Who holds the ability to do that? Because we are not seen as a neutral actor. And we maybe never were. I don't want to tell anybody that. I think there's a lot of people who say you always leaned one way in this. But I think there was at least an attempt to be somewhat of the arbitrator in this. We saw President Carter do it with Begin and Sadat. We've had certain wins along the way that were actually mutually beneficial both ways. Now I ask who that is. And I mean, consistently over and over again, we're going to have to face the reality. It might be the Chinese. And that goes against everything they say they're trying to do in terms of the balance of power. So I would just have to say my heart goes out for this. Ukraine continues to go on. Gaza continues to be a humanitarian disaster. And now it's expanded even further.
China. Bob, the country with the moral authority to bring peace to the Middle East, peace between Israel and Iran, communist China, Beijing. What say you, Bob?
I don't believe it. I don't know what else to say. It's so ridiculous and far-fetched. How do you reason with this guy? He is so far out in left field, it's pathetic.
Well, look, this is a man who married in communist China, honeymooned in communist China, went and did at least 30 trips to communist China, has repeatedly praised communist China, communism in China as a social model, is an admirer of Mao, who takes numerous private trips around the United States paid for by the CCP. Now, I don't like to throw around the traitor word often, but if it talks like a duck, walks like a duck, looks like a duck, acts like a duck, it's a duck. This guy is clearly in the pocket of the communist Chinese and is mouthing their propaganda. He is a mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party. He's a traitor. He's a traitor. And he's clearly an agent of the Chinese communists. And for him, with a straight face, to say that this genocidal regime, which, by the way, backs Iran to the hilt, even more than Russia, provides them with aid, buys Iran's oil illegally on the international black market, has provided them with missiles, missile technology, has armed Iran to the teeth, that there's some kind of a neutral arbiter, and that they have the, quote, moral authority to negotiate a peace deal, and we don't? I.e., China is superior to the United States morally on the world stage? Holy mackerel. A brutal, one-party, totalitarian police state. This guy is sick in the head. I mean, he's sick in the head, and he's on the take. He's taking Chinese money, and he's a traitor. He's a traitor. And that the people of Minnesota have continued to vote this guy in? Bob, honestly, I don't know what to say. Final word to you, Bob.
Are in all kinds of prisons and work camps, and God knows what goes on there. And this guy thinks that this is the country that we should look up to. He's out of his mind.
Welcome to the modern Democratic Party. It's the Democrat Communist Party, and they are completely in bed with the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, that's how they roll. Bob, thank you very much for that call. Great call. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Big story. Don't touch that dial. 19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer. 617-266-6868. 6868 is the number. Okay. It's an unbelievable story, and it got lost. It got lost with the war that broke out between Israel and Iran. It got lost with the No Kings protest. It got lost with the assassinations, the political assassinations up in Minnesota. But the Democrats are trying to turn this into another example of Trump being a dictator, of a fascist, trying to impose a monarchy or a tyranny on the United States, and they're trying to elevate California Senator Alex Padilla as a martyr, a political martyr now, to the growing Trump dictatorship. He's now a hero of la résistance, the resistance. So, this is what happened late last week. It was on a Thursday. And Kristi Noem was in Los Angeles giving an update on the riots, on the National Guard troops that had been deployed, on the Marines that were being deployed, and how they were doing everything in their power to try to quell the growing civil unrest and the insurrection and the terrorism that had now broken out in downtown LA night after night after night. Listen to her now. Now remember, this is a live press conference. It was covered by all the major cable news networks. It was being broadcast live to the country. There is a media scrum there. There is Secret Service and other security guards present. The city is on high alert. They're worried that officials could be attacked. Government officials could be attacked. Government buildings could be attacked. So she's and I remember I was in the car at the time. I was on my way to my doctor's appointment, and I have Sirius XM in my car. And so normally I prefer to watch Newsmax. If you want to know the truth, I like to watch Newsmax. They don't have Newsmax on Sirius XM. So I turn it to Fox. So one of the few times I ever listen to Fox is when I'm in my car on Sirius XM. So I had it on Fox. And it was very early in her presser, in her speech. And you hear one person yelling and screaming in the background. And I'm just giving you my point of view as someone who wasn't watching it on TV, but in the car listening. And I'm like, who is that idiot? And right away I thought, is that some kind of protester who was just trying to storm or, interrupt her press conference? And of course, security took that person away. Anyway, it lasted for about maybe a minute. And she just kept talking over the person. So the effect in the car was someone tried to interrupt a presser, probably a protester, a crazy protester, and security dealt with it, and she moved on with her speech. Listen to her. She's beginning to, give her opening remarks. And then you hear someone yelling, shouting, screaming. Roll cut 31, Mike.
The Department of Homeland Security and the officers and the agencies and the departments and the military people that are working on this operation will continue to sustain and increase our operations in this city. We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city.
And then you hear just a little bit, okay? You hear just a little bit in the background. And it turns out it was Senator Alex Padilla from California. Now, I want to stress, because the media is completely ignoring this entire aspect of this. They're portraying it as Trump's out of control. Kristi Noem, she's another fascist. They slammed him to the ground. They handcuffed him just for asking a question. This is not a democracy. He comes in, he's dressed in civil clothing, meaning he's not dressed, he's dressed the way I would be on the street. He's got jeans and a shirt on and a windbreaker. He's not dressed in a suit. He doesn't look like a senator. He's not dressed like a senator. Okay, that's number one. Number two, he never introduces himself. He never identifies himself. He never comes in and tells the Secret Service agents or the security people there, hi, I'm Senator Alex Padilla, and here's some ID. Here's some identification. He didn't have his security pin on, which would clearly show that he's a member of Congress. He had none of that. So here's a guy who literally comes rushing in. He's bum rushing Kristi Noem. He's running towards her. He's storming and interrupting a live press conference. Roll cut 32, Mike.
So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this. Also, I want to talk specifically to the rioters and to the politicians in Los Angeles. I also want to talk about specifically how many of our ICE agents have been doxxed for doing their duty.
So she continues. Like, you can tell she's thinking, well, this is a crazy protester, one of these, crazy radical left-wingers who've been, protesting and rioting on the streets of LA for the last couple days. Now, he's wrestled to the ground by Secret Service, and then he's eventually placed temporarily in handcuffs. Now, what the media is not showing you is the part where he's lunging at Kristi Noem, shouting, yelling, screaming, I have a question for you! I have a question for you! I have a question for you! And they're like, sir, you can't be here, sir. And then they push him back, and then they put him down on the ground. Now, the left is saying these were Gestapo tactics. Noem is saying, well, we'll discuss it on the other side. Bulldozer 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so the so-called Alex Padilla scandal now continues to grow and grow and grow. You now have Democrats demanding that Kristi Noem testify under oath. They're demanding, some of them, that she resign. They're claiming that the way Secret Service agents handled Padilla was thuggish, authoritarian, dictatorial, abusive, and unacceptable. So, listen now. This is California Senator Alex Padilla. So, he's brought to the ground. They put him temporarily in handcuffs. By the way, he wasn't charged with anything. Then when he said, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? They're like, no, we don't know who you are. He says, I'm a senator from California. They're like, really? Show us some ID. So he finally shows them some ID. And that's when they realize, oh, okay, well, you should have identified yourself. Like, it was a cheap, crass political stunt. And you got burned. Like, I'm sorry, the Secret Service doesn't know every member of the Senate. I don't know what planet these people are living on. So you see a guy dressed in civvies, bum rushing the Secretary of Homeland Security as she's giving a live presser, yelling, shouting, screaming. By the way, resisting security guards when they put their hands on him. And saying, don't you dare touch me, don't you dare touch me. And so, of course, they were going to put him on the ground. Of course he was going to be detained. Of course they were going to put handcuffs. As I said on X, let me repeat it. If anybody did what he did, say Jeff Kuhner, not that I ever would, but you've got the Secretary of Homeland Security in Los Angeles, in the midst of rioting everywhere. And she's delivering a live press conference in front of the media and the country. And I rush in. I storm and interrupt the press conference, yelling, screaming, and shouting. And going towards her, bum rushing her, lunging towards her. and then I'm held by Secret Service agents. And I'm saying, don't you touch me, don't you dare touch me. What do you think they were going to do to me? Treat me with kid gloves? Give me a Tootsie Roll? No. They would push me out of the room, force me out of the room, and then drop me on the ground and slap some handcuffs. Of course. So, if it's good enough for everybody else, why isn't it good enough for Alex Padilla? Why? Because you're a senator? You can do whatever you want? You're above the law? But it doesn't matter. He wanted to create a scene. He wanted to show himself being, quote-unquote, victimized by the Trump regime. That's what he wanted. He wanted his photo up. He wanted an incident, and he got it. And so, now remember, he hasn't been arrested. There were no charges, no nothing. They said to him, please, sir, next time identify yourself. You have a security pin. Please, wear the security pin. If you want to come in, show some ID. We don't know who you are. We don't know most people in the Senate. I'm sorry, we just don't follow politics that closely. Listen now to Padilla. He then delivers this. He's like a victim. He was on the verge of tears. By the way, half the time speaking in Spanish. So, I'm sorry, are we in America or are we in Mexico? Anyway, let that go. This is Padilla now, playing the victim. Roll cut 32A, Mike.
While I was waiting for the briefing with General Guillot, I learned that Secretary Noem was having a press conference a couple of doors down the hall. Since the beginning of the year, but especially hear what she had to say, to see if I could learn any new additional information. And at one point, I had a question. And let me emphasize, just as we've emphasized the right for people to peacefully protest and to stand up for their First Amendment rights, for our fundamental rights. I was there peacefully. At one point, I had a question. And so I began to ask a question. I was almost immediately forcibly removed from the room. I was forced to the ground. And I was handcuffed.
I was removed from the room. And I was forcibly taken to the ground. I was handcuffed. I just wanted to ask a question. They wouldn't let me ask a question. So, of course, the Dems got what they wanted. A cheap political stunt. And so, Gavin Newsom, right away, right on cue, baby, went on X and said, and they showed the picture of Padilla on the ground being handcuffed. If they could handcuff him, what do you think they can do to you? And Elizabeth Warren, Chief Fullable, went on a rampage. She ran to the Senate floor. This is an abuse of power. This is a growing dictatorship. How dare you do this to Alex Padilla? Simply for questions now are not allowed in Trump's America. Kristi Noem addressed it very well afterwards. She said, in fact, I've been calling Padilla's office multiple times. I want to speak to him. I'd love to speak to him. She goes, all he had to do was call my office. We could have made an appointment in 15 minutes. I would have seen him at his at time and leisure of his choosing. In fact, they even met afterwards and spoke for a good 20 minutes. And she said, we exchanged notes, we agreed to disagree, but I gave him all the information he asked, we took notes, and we agreed to do follow-up conversations. But no. You see, that's too civilized. That's too normal. That's too rational for these Democrats. So, listen now to Padilla. Well, now he's a martyr. Now he's a victim. So, he goes on Margaret Brennan's Face the Nation. Okay? That hack. That anti-Trump hack. Now, listen to this. Now the argument is that Kristi Noem should have recognized him. And that the Secret Service agents should have recognized them. And how dare they didn't recognize him. And so that they're to blame. Because in reality, they knew who he was, but they just wanted to humiliate him. Why? Racism. Because Padilla is a Latino. And that's why he was mistreated. Roll cut 24. Mike.
For a cabinet secretary during a press conference to not be able or be willing to de-escalate a situation when I was trying to ask a question, that's just indicative
you wanted
of the
her
tone.
to say, wait a second, I know who he is, calm down, let him go? Is that what you're saying?
The vast majority of people in that room knew who I was. Escorted into that room by an FBI agent and a National Guards member. It's the Los Angeles Press Corps. It said United States Senate on the chest of my polo.
Okay. He's lying, number one. Number two, he should have showed ID. He didn't. He should have had his security pin. He didn't. No. He's trying to foment fake grievances. He's doing the, don't you know who I am? Should he have been taken down? Is the number. Okay. Pity California Senator Alex Padilla. So the media, the Democrats are now, I mean, you want to talk about making a mountain out of a molehill. They are going on about how he was manhandled, he was mistreated. These are the signs now of a coming dictatorship. Even senators are not safe. Listen now to Massachusetts' own moonbat, Democrat Congressman Seth Moulton on This Is CNN. Roll cut 35. Mike.
Well, first of all, I picked up the phone and called. I have a couple friends who are FBI agents, so I called one of them because it was apparently FBI agents who pushed him to the ground and handcuffed him. And I said, what on earth is the FBI doing arresting a United States senator? And he said it was embarrassing, and it certainly shouldn't have happened. So I don't know the full circumstances of the interaction. I've seen one video. I haven't seen it from all perspectives. But any time that federal law enforcement is arresting a United States senator for asking a question, it doesn't feel like we live in a democracy.
Tell me, when you guys, when the FBI went in guns blazing and and stormed Trump's home in an FBI raid on a bogus charge that the whole country and the whole world was laughing at, with shoot to kill orders, was that embarrassing, Seth? No. Oh, no, then it wasn't embarrassing. Then it's okay, huh? Now, listen to Schumer. I honestly thought the guy was going to cry. He's on the Senate floor now. I thought the waterworks were going to come on. Really, cry me a river. Listen now. This is him. He can't sleep at night. It's tearing him apart what they did to Alex Padilla. And by the way, it wasn't the FBI, it was Secret Service agents, okay? But let that go. Roll cut 35A. Mike. All right, so Schumer is saying that a United States senator was mishandled simply for asking a question. What is happening to our country? We need answers. Kristi Noem needs to be put under oath. Kash Patel needs to be put under oath. Dan Bongino needs to be put under oath. Secret Service agents need to be put under oath. This is a threat. Again, here it is. It's a threat to democracy. If they can do it to Padilla, they can do it to you, to me, to all of us. All right, Mike, we're having a hard time getting the audio for that. Okay, forget that. Do me a favor then. Here's Cory Booker. Basically, Schumer said, it sickens my stomach. The mishandling of a United States senator. We need immediate answers to what the hell went on. I want you to listen now to Cory Booker. Okay? I want you to listen to Cory Booker running to the state Senate, to the Senate floor, ranting, raving, roll cut 16. Mike.
Could make Alex Padilla forcibly kneel before this executive. When does it stop? He's a United States senator. And if you could force him to kneel to his knees violently, when does it stop? What does it say to other Americans who want to speak up? What does it say to other Americans that want to exercise their constitutional duty? What does it say to other Americans this weekend when they want to peacefully protest? What does it say to other Americans from humble backgrounds who know poverty? That if a United States senator who stands up to do his job can be made to heel, driven to his knees, violently handcuffed, what does it say? What message does it send? Everybody in this body should see that this is a crossroads. They treated a member of the United States Senate violently after he identified himself, dragged him out of a room, threw him upon the ground, and put him in handcuffs. Every member of this body should object to that.
I mean, he's going to get a heart attack. I mean, the play acting, the full outrage. Honestly, the bull, you know what I want to say, the bull crap coming out of this guy's mouth. I am Spartacus. Yeah, at least he didn't go on for 48, what is it, 25 hours, 28, whatever it was, Mike. It's true. At least he didn't go on for over a day. That's true. At least, he kept it to a couple minutes. But, I mean, so, no, the answer is simple. No one's above the law. I don't know how else to tell him. I mean, well, what planet are you people living on? So what? Because he's a senator from California, he can do whatever he wants? You know that the liberals are lying and grasping for straws when even CNN, okay? CNN, their own CNN security correspondent says, well no, Secret Service and FBI agents behaved perfectly, accordingly. You can't do what Padilla did. Nobody can. Roll cut. This is Josh Campbell. Roll cut 36. A mic.
It's easy to think about this as one incident, but actually from a law enforcement perspective, we're really looking at three separate incidents that happened within a short period of time. First, you have the DHS secretary who is addressing the press. This was not a Q&A period, and she's interrupted. She's interrupted by someone who is speaking very loudly, and so her security detail confronts what we obviously now know to be the senator, and at that point, he is now going to be escorted out. You can't interrupt something like that that's already in progress without having those consequences. But the second incident, in my view, happens the moment as officers are trying to lead him out. He then turns and walks back towards, kind of into those agents. At that point, from a security detail perspective, we're taking this person out against their will. We've asked the person, and again, this is all happening very quickly, but the moment he then turns into them, they realize this is not someone who is going to comply.
Look, he comes in unannounced into a live press conference in the midst of a city under siege where there's rioting, burning, and looting, and law enforcement is being assaulted and attacked by every second, every minute, every hour. He lunges for Kristi Noem. He is shouting and yelling and screaming. What did you expect the FBI and Secret Service to do? And no, nobody knows who he is. Sorry, he should get off his ego trip. Most people would not recognize most members of the U.S. Senate if they walked right by him at an airport. That's just the way it is. They may think they're important. In our lives, they're really not that important. So, he's unknown. He doesn't identify himself. He then storms and bum rushes. And by the way, what was so freaking pressing that you had to confront her with a question right there as she's doing her live press conference in front of the cameras? What was it that, couldn't wait till after she was done? This is what, again, it's all political theater. It's nothing but a crass, cheap publicity stunt. He wanted himself to be arrested. He wanted to be thrown to the ground. He wanted to make it seem, look what they did to me. How dare they? Now, let me just tell all of you something else, and this needs to be said. Final point, and then I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868. And the question I have for all of you is, did Secret Service, did the FBI mishandle Alex Padilla? Did they manhandle him? Were they too rough with him? Did they behave inappropriately? Or is Dan Bongino right when he came out on X and saying that he is very proud of the men and women who took care of him, that they did exactly what they were trained to do, that the person in the wrong here is Padilla, and that the one that owes everyone an apology is Padilla, not the Secret Service, not the FBI, and certainly not Secretary Kristi Noem. So here it is. Now, according to Schumer, you know who's to blame? Noem is to blame. The FBI, the Secret Service, they're to blame. Roll it, Mike.
Without objection. Mr. President, I just saw something that sickened my stomach. The manhandling of a United States senator. We need immediate answers to what the hell went on. I yield the floor.
Okay, well, you got all the answers you want. I mean, everybody knows now what happened. You just don't like the answers. Okay? But look, I have to say this. As I said on X, and I want to repeat it, Alex Padilla is the son of illegal aliens. In a Washington Post interview, both his mother and his father admitted that they came to the United States, to California, illegally. So he's what you call an anchor baby. Okay? He's a U.S. citizen, yes, but he's what you call an anchor baby. Both of his parents came here illegally. Now, furthermore, throughout his entire career as a state senator in the local city council, his politics in California, now and then he was elevated to senator from California. Throughout his entire political career, he has championed one issue over and over and over and over again. Amnesty, amnestio. Amnesty for all illegal aliens. Plus, free health care, free education, free welfare, free food stamps. So, free health care, free education, free welfare for every single illegal alien. And now that the riots have erupted, this insurrection, this violence has erupted in downtown L.A., he has made it crystal clear. He doesn't side with the federal government. He doesn't side with federal immigration law. He doesn't side with national sovereignty of the United States. He sides and embraces the rioters, the ones waving the Mexican flag. Now, don't even take my word for it. Every interview this loser, and he is a loser, he's a clown. Every interview this clown gives, how he's proud of his Mexican heritage, how he's proud of his Mexican roots. Every speech is bilingual. That's all. He's always English to Spanish, Spanish to English. He often will just go Spanish only, especially if he's in front of a predominantly Latino crowd of illegal aliens in California or in L.A. So let me get this straight. You bend the knee to a foreign flag. Your parents came illegally from Mexico. You champion illegal aliens from Mexico. You want to give them a path to citizenship and amnesty. And with our taxpayer dollars, continue to give them free welfare, free food, free housing, free health care, free education. Buddy, you're a traitor. You're a traitor. If no one else has the guts to say it, I'm going to say it. You're a freaking traitor. And let me even get even more personal if I can. Okay? My parents weren't illegals. They came to Canada legally. Okay? Like most people from then Yugoslavia, what is today Croatia. They kissed the ground of Canada. They came as poor refugees without $10 to their name. And they worked their asses off. My dad, God bless him, never took a single welfare check his entire life. He never took a single unemployment check. By the grace of God, he would tell me. He worked and worked. My mother never took a welfare check. Ever. 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 Never mind. Free this, free that, free this. Living on the taxpayer like a leech and a parasite like his parents did. And you think you come from a poor third world hellhole of a country and you flee poverty and misery and violence. You think a guy like him, he claims from the barrio, from a very poor working class neighborhood. You think you'd look around and say, wow, I'm a United States Senator. The first Latino senator in the history of California. It's the American dream. This is the greatest country in God's earth. On God's green earth. You think you'd be, mwah, 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 mwah. I love this country. No. He spits on it. He mocks it. He derides it. His allegiance is with the freaking rioters. His allegiance is with the criminal lawbreakers and the illegals. His allegiance is to Mexico. I'm sorry, you're a disgusting ingrate. And then you pull off this cheap stunt. Look, I don't know. Maybe in Mexico, I don't know. Maybe in Tijuana, that's how they do things over there. You just charge at a press conference. I have a question for you. I have a question for you. Okay? And maybe that works in Mexico. I don't know. But here in the United States, you pick up the phone. You call the DHS secretary. You say, I got some concerns. When can we have a meeting? And you have a meeting. And afterwards, you can hold a press conference. Don't worry, the local media will cover it. Don't worry. You can write an op-ed. You can give us a floor speech in the Senate. You can do a million things. But no, you got to behave like a clown. And then act somehow like this country's a dictatorship when it's been nothing but extremely good to you and your entire family. Now, let me say one last thing. These so-called anchor babies. He's an example of an anchor baby. That's why you don't allow anchor babies in any country. Look at them. Look at the lack of gratitude. You think their loyalty is to the United States? No. Their loyalty, even when you give them citizenship, is to the country that their parents fled from. And it doesn't matter. You know, they thought, well, Jeff, they're poor. They have nothing. This guy's a United States Senator. You got to see the car this guy drives in. You got to see the neighborhood he lives in. I'm not complaining. He lives 3 times better than I do. I'm not complaining. I'm just stating the fact. So if this guy, if Padilla can't be grateful, if Padilla can't be happy, if Padilla can't be loyal to the United States, then which anchor baby can? These illegals have been playing us for suckers, fools, and idiots for 40 years now. Enough. Enough. And as many pointed out on social media, he touched these FBI agents and Secret Service agents. He pushed them. He elbowed them. See the full video. Don't see the 15-second clip that the media is feeding everybody. He did the same thing, if not worse, than what the J6ers did to police officers on steps of the Capitol. Now, honestly, they should have arrested him for assaulting police the way they arrested the J6ers. This guy's lucky he wasn't arrested, and he's still playing the victim? Blank off. I don't know what blank off is in Spanish, but whatever it is, blank off. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. George in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, George, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Thanks for taking the call. Wouldn't it be... not that I endorse this, but it would have been funny if someone charged Padilla when he was doing his press conference and do the exact same thing. I mean, I think the only way to combat this theater is just through comedy, because people aren't really paying attention, unfortunately.
Well, George, let's play it out. He holds his press conference, after he's, put on the ground, and temporarily they put the handcuffs on him. And by the way, half of it is in Spanish, so you won't know what he's saying. But let that go. And he's like, I can't believe what they did to me. So he's doing his shtick, And by the way, I got to say, the guy's in the wrong line of work. He's in California, yes. He should not be in the Senate. This guy should be in Hollywood. This guy, whoa, he could play like a gangster really well. But anyway, so George, say somebody, you, me, whoever, we lunge at him, we storm, we start shouting and yelling. I get the sense his security people would slam us to the ground, and unlike him, we would be arrested and thrown in the back of a police car. Am I wrong, George?
I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, I think it would probably even be tased. I mean, it's just a joke. I mean, I guess, and also what the other thing that I noticed, because this is kind of on the lighter side of what's going on.
George, can you do me a favor? Mike he's with the button, with this whole, he's trigger happy again with the button. So I'm up against the break. God forbid, Mike, you should give him an extra 20 seconds to make his lighter point. But please, hang on, George. We'll come right back to you. 19 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. Okay, let's go right back to George in New Hampshire. George, before you make your second and lighter point, I want to ask you this. There's talk in Hollywood of doing a Scarface remake. The famous Al Pacino movie where, he plays, now that one he plays a Cuban gangster. But my question to you, I'm thinking maybe Alex Padilla in the lead role. What do you say, George?
People's tastes and standards have dropped so much that they'd probably go for it. You know what I mean? I mean, the mere fact that he wasn't arrested shows that he is a beautiful person. And because if you do that illustration that I kind of painted before, I mean, you and I would be flat on the ground and arrested. They really gave him a break, and they really should have went after him. And again, FBI, Secret Service, I know it's a federal building, but they really should have done a better job, guarding who's going in there and who isn't, because, it's just another kind of black mark on their service. And it's easy for me to be super critical on my, from the macro sense, but these things, we're in volatile times, and this craziness seems to be ratcheted up. And you brought it up earlier in the show. I mean, it's just that the political rhetoric is really ratcheted up, and these things are going to become more common. And it's just sad,
I agree.
It's just really
George,
sad.
I completely agree. George, as always, thank you very much for that call. Now, say hello to my little friend. He'd be perfect for the role, I'm telling you. And, and the Secret Service agents were interviewed afterwards. And they said, look at it from our point of view. You got this guy who's yelling, shouting like a wild man. And he's bum rushing the secretary, yelling and screaming. We don't know who this guy is. So, he goes, what are we supposed to do? Just say, oh, okay, well, go ahead. Go and attack the secretary. Go, yell, go scream in her face. Interrupt the live presser. God forbid if he was a violent protester or rioter or, one of these insurrectionists and Kristi Noem was killed or shot or physically assaulted. What would we all be saying? Secret Service is not doing their job. They fell down again. FBI fell down again. So they said, look at it from our point of view. You got this person charging the secretary in the middle of a press conference, shouting God knows what. Of course we thought it was a threat. And he refused to identify himself. And then when we tried to grab him, he was pushing, elbowing, and shoving us. So yeah, we took him out of the building and we put him on the ground and we put handcuffs. And to me, I don't even know what Padilla is complaining about. He wasn't arrested. He wasn't charged. So, buddy, what's the problem? Am I missing something? 617-266-6868. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Well, Jeff, Newsmax and Fox put this story to bed about a half an hour after it happened, and you're doing him a big favor. I mean, it's enough to make you throw up to see what happened. Even more to throw up the kind of clowns they have in the Senate, like Schumer and Booker. Those people disgust me. But you know what? That's the problem in this country today, is that this alleged media that we have, okay, is no longer a media. I'm a veteran of the U.S. Army, and I think the more important story this morning is the wonderful 250th birthday of the U.S. Army that happened over the weekend, and I was proud to watch it. But you know what? You could only watch it on two stations. The FCC should pull the licenses of CNN, Newsmax, ABC, NBC, CBS, and they've already pulled the funding for PBS because they don't report anything. And they've done their job, because all over the country, and people who are intelligent that I speak to, they have such venom towards Donald Trump because they don't know a thing about what he does. They don't know all the good that he does. They don't know what the makeup of the man is. They think he's Hitler. And that's what the media has done. They've been doing it for God knows how long. They have no right to have a broadcast license, and they've broadcast those phony January 6th hearings that had no business on TV. I don't even know why they haven't been exposed in all this time that Trump has been in office, because I'm tired of hearing of what as that as an insurrection. But with what's going on in L.A. and all across the country are insurrections and riots. And by the way, all of the media was the alleged media wasn't talking about the birthday of the U.S. Army and that wonderful celebration. They were talking about the anti-Kings protests all over the country. We have two types of people in this country. We have the Americans who you saw in Washington, who are proud of America, proud of the flag, proud of the military, and to think of what these people, the people of the military, have done for this country. They're protesting kings. It was the army that got rid of a king and founded this and helped, bring about America. And for people like Padilla, who should be thankful that they have Secret Service like that, because they were protecting her, but at the same time, they protect scumbags like him too, unfortunately. You know, this has got to stop. I am fed up with what's on broadcast and as represented as the news, and every American in this country should be calling the FCC to pull their licenses. We need to go back.
Oh, I agree. No, I so agree with you. And you know, Arthur, look, it was a beautiful parade. I watched the parade. And it was a dignified parade. It was a really just a spectacular parade, something befitting of a great military, a great army, and a great country. And by the way, according to all these crazy liberals and leftists, this parade now means we're living in a dictatorship. Seriously. Free on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, look, there's no question. The No Kings protest wasn't just a movement against Trump. In other words, to nullify the election and Trump's victory and mandate in the November 2024 election presidential campaign. It's also clearly was a celebration of the rioting and the political violence unleashed by the anti-ICE activists in Los Angeles, in Minneapolis, in Chicago, and in cities, Atlanta, and in cities all across the country. And look, what they wanted on Saturday was, and there's no question, they wanted to convince Americans. This is what Democrats have been arguing now for weeks in the buildup of that beautiful parade that was held in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, that the Dems, the media, the radical left, all of them, in unison saying, this was a parade by a military dictator for a military dictator on his birthday. They kept repeating this lie, this false, to me, slanderous narrative day after day, week after week, until it finally culminated yesterday. That this is a man who's essentially crowning himself a monarch, an emperor, a king, a dictator, and telling the American people through this parade that he now controls the military completely, the military is loyal to him, and he is now King Donald. He is now Fuhrer Donald. That's the lies, the myth that they were propagating through that so-called No Kings protest yesterday. I want you to listen. I could give you cut after cut. Let me just give you one. This is Democratic Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury. She's literally on the House Oversight Committee. And she's promoting the No Kings protests. By the way, as did Bernie, as did Elizabeth Warren, as did AOC, as did Cory Booker, as did Schumer, as did Hakeem Jeffries, as did Nancy Pelosi, the entire leadership of the Democratic Party. Roll cut 15, Mike.
I want to read a list of grievances: obstructing the administration of justice, refusing to assent to the laws for the public good, sending swarms of officers to harass our people, keeping standing armies without consent of our legislatures, transporting Americans overseas to be tried for pretend offenses. Mr. Chairman, I wonder, do you know where these offenses come from? No? Aw, that's too bad. Because it's actually the Declaration of Independence. That's right. It's the Declaration of Independence, and my colleagues across the aisle might want to bone up on that in the U.S. Constitution before they go attacking our communities, especially as we head into the 4th of July holiday, and celebrate our independence from an abusive and mad king. Because here in America, there are no kings, and we reject people who believe they are. And no one is above the law, and we will hold them accountable.
I mean, honestly, how historically ignorant and stupid this woman is, it's mind-blowing. But what she's saying is, and it's what the Democrats are saying, the revolution, the American Revolution was fought for illegals. Really, that's what they're saying. That Trump is a king because he's deporting illegal aliens. Which, by the way, Obama did, George W. Bush did, Bill Clinton did, by the millions and millions and millions. So, if Trump is a king, what the hell were they? Super dictators? Mega dictators? Bernie Sanders went on X, and let me tell you exactly what he said. In 1776, Americans chose freedom and not authoritarianism. In 2025, Americans are making the exact same choice again. Literally, Bernie Sanders was calling for revolutionary violence. And that's what she's hinting at. It's time to overthrow Mad King Donald Trump. Donald Trump is now King George III. It's open, naked insurrection. It's open, naked calls for the revolutionary overthrow of the American government. What they're saying is, we need another 1776. Pick up arms, pick up a musket, pick up whatever you can pick up, and it's time now to take it to the federal government. Because Donald Trump has now morphed into King George III. And the proof, this is, I say, well, where's your evidence for any of this? He threw a parade. In their view, he threw himself a parade. So by their completely unhinged, crazy logic, now that the parade is over, by the way, June 14th was Flag Day. June 14th was the 250th anniversary of the U.S. Army, the army that helped us win the Revolutionary War under George Washington and Alexander Hamilton. So he's celebrating our military, our great past, our great victories of the past, and shaping a vision for the future of the country, that we are not going to lose wars anymore the way we have since Vietnam. And from this, they now claim we're living in a military dictatorship. So I want you to understand how crazy, how insane these people are. According now to the Democrats, according to the media, according to all these crazy left-wing radical activists on the streets, right now, as of Saturday, since that beautiful parade, we are now in a military dictatorship. So I want to, seriously, do you feel like we're living in a military dictatorship? Because I'll tell you this right now, in a real monarchy, in a real military dictatorship, there would have been no king's protest. Every single one of them would have been locked up. Every single one of them. And most of them shot. The entire media would be shut down. The Democratic Party would be banned. The Supreme Court would all be imprisoned. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on. But according to them, we now live in a monarchical military dictatorship. Now, you don't tell me these people, that TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, hasn't driven these people completely batty and kooky. They're nutty as a fruitcake. The Republicans should laugh in their face. Agree, disagree, 617-266-6868. Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Very good. How are you, Roman?
I'm excellent. Okay. If we did liberate ourselves from the Mad King when we elected Donald Trump, does Stanbury not believe that we had a Mad King and we were under a dictatorship? As far as the parade, the left will do.
Well, you're right. The left can do anything they want. That's what's so scary. Roman, do me a favor. I'm up against a hard break. I'm going to come right back to you, take more of your calls. Don't touch that dial. On the great WRKO, Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Roman in Boston. Roman, please pick up where you left off.
Yeah, Jeff, the left thinks that they can do whatever they want to do. Trump can't have a parade commemorating the 250th anniversary of the military. When I was a kid, and all I remember was on 4th of July, the military in the parade, marching up and down the street. It was fine back then, but not now. Yet they can have gay pride parades where they're doing lewd and lascivious acts in the street, naked men in front of little children. That's okay. The riots are okay. They turned into an insurrection now, in my opinion, is a full-out invasion. That's fine. Padilla, no, he doesn't even have the grit to play Scarface. He's more like Spicoli on the Fast Times at Ridgemont High. So the first thing out of the left's mouth, Jeff, is nobody's above the law. First thing out of their mouth again. Do you know who I am? How dare you? No, we don't know who you are, Padilla. You're basically brand new on the scene. You didn't have your Senate pin on, and law enforcement's actions, they're justified by his actions. He pushed, they pushed back. Their first obligation was to protect Kristi Noem. The only way I know him is from the Senate confirmation hearings when he sat there like a pompous ass asking all kinds of questions like he's better than everybody else. That guy's a moron. Suck mouth, and I have one thing to say to you. That small clip that you played, Jeff, you got three things wrong. We are not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic, number one. Number two, what else did he say? That it was the FBI. It was the Secret Service, Seth. And he said that, oh, God, it escapes me now, but that guy is a walking... Yeah, that the FBI, which I don't believe him, that he spoke to FBI agents and they said that was an embarrassment. And that was another lie. That's an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment. How did he get in office? How did any of them get in office? Today was like, I was laughing at all of them. Cory Booker, him. They're actually funny because they're so stupid. Chuck Schumer. But look it's okay for them to do whatever they want. But Trump can't do anything. You know Trump's winning when they act that way. Have a great day, Jeff.
Roman, drop the mic. Great call. Great call. Betty in Worcester, thanks for, again, best audience in the business. Huh? Wasn't that a great call? Betty in Worcester, thanks for holding, Betty, and welcome.
It's Ellie.
Ellie, I'm sorry I have Betty on the board. My apologies. Ellie, please, go ahead. The floor is yours. Go ahead, Ellie.
Okay, drum roll. And the 2025 Oscars of 2025 go to Alex Padilla. It's like, you know, did you see the size of this guy? He's a Hulk. Now, if you had somebody lunging at you that size, it takes 2-3 guys to even move him, right? And then who are those two guys with their cell phones ready to record everything in front of the camera? Everything was staged. Anybody with 10% brain power can see that this was staged. And anybody with 10% brain power can also see that this was designed to cause fear, panic, and anger in the masses just in time for the King's rallies. All staged.
Ellie, I wish I could disagree with you, but I can't. I think it was a setup. I think you're right. I think it was staged, and I think it was a publicity stunt. And you're right, just in time for the No Kings protest. Ellie, dynamite call. Let's squeeze one more in. Ron in Holliston. Ron, I hate to do this to you. 1 minute. The floor is yours. Go.
Jeff, if nobody says it, let me be the one to say it. I think it's time to declare the DNC as a terrorist organization within the United States. They're responsible for COVID cover-ups, for grooming and sexual gender ideology on children, and it's horrible. I think that if they were declared a terrorist organization, they'd have to eject the Marxist progressives, and those people would have to find a new home, and then the Democrats and Republicans would have to compete for the independent vote.
You know, again, Ron, I wish I could say you're off base, but you're not. And, you know, you mentioned some very good examples: rioting, looting, burning, tearing down entire cities, calling now for the revolutionary overthrow, the violent overthrow of the American government. Ay, ay, ay. If that's not a terrorist organization, honestly, I don't know what is. And on that note, I gotta go. Bye-bye.